Hello and welcome to the Design, Pattern, and Create live Q&A for Thursday at noon. I am Christina Hadley-Dyke, and I help sewing enthusiasts learn how to digitally pattern their own sewing patterns to create amazing pieces of wearable art. And I'm joined today by quite a few of our speakers who I'm super excited for you guys to meet. A few housekeeping notes. We are streaming through StreamYard. So if you want to comment or anything, make sure that you give StreamYard permission to let us see your name. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. We'll just see Facebook user or something. We won't know who it is, but we will still answer your questions. So just make sure to take your choice and please give StreamYard your permission so that we can see your names and reference you. Also, we'd love to know where you are watching from. We have a wide variety of people watching this, so we'd love to know where in the world you are, because even the speakers we have today are also all over the world. So I'm going to go ahead and let them all start off by introducing themselves, and we'll get started with questions. Alexandra, do you want to get going first?
Hello. I feel silly when I'm like, my name's Alexandra, you've just introduced me. But I'm a professional fashion designer, pattern cutter, and creative consultant. It's all I've done with my life, so I'd love to have a nice varied career, but fashion is it. Outside of it, I ride horses, I am human, I have scoliosis, so fashion has actually been a really empowering tool I've used for my confidence. I also have a membership called the deepen, where my members and I create, cut, and construct, very similar to design, pattern, and create, our dream wardrobes that fit and flatter us. And it's all about tapping into your true, authentic style, being an active goofball with energy, and just being at peace with that and having that inner confidence through fashion.
Awesome. Welcome. Yes, and Sandra.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Sandra. I'm a knitwear designer from Mexico. I specialize in crochet designs, and I've been crocheting and knitting feels like all my life, but I started designing professionally about 6 years ago, and then full-time when my first daughter was born. And yeah, like my whole concept is the idea of elevating crochet, creating actually wearable pieces of clothing and not just like doilies and things like that. So kind of, yeah, elevating it, creating some things that are pretty and wearable and professional looking. And I have a website on Instagram, I Sew My Stitches, and I started a new platform called Flyful about 2 months ago, where we focus on crochet and especially on garments. And we have classes, we have live events, we get to meet people, designers from all over the world, really. And yeah, we're trying to start a community of crocheters that are looking for using their craft to create something that they can actually wear every day. And yeah, I love what I do.
Awesome. Teresa, you want to go next?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, deal. I was having to swipe screens and come back. All right, well, hello. I am Teresa Sigmund, and this is my first Q&A for this summit. Actually, this is the first time I've ever been part of a sewing-related summit. I think it's pretty exciting. I run an online sewing school. I teach people how to make ballroom dance costumes and artistic roller and ice skating costumes for women. It's a pretty niche, and to expand what I do, I then also created what I call the dress.
Oh, you went silent. I don't know. Teresa, you went silent. I don't know if she can.
Can anyone let read? We got this.
I don't think she can hear us either. You went silent. I don't know if we can. You still hear us? Nope. She doesn't have the little mute signal on either. Well, we might have, we'll have to see if we can get her sound back. Nope, no sound. It might help if you log out and log back in. That sometimes fixes the sound a little bit. Sometimes. I don't know. Oh, there.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I am sitting in the car, and it had me on safe driving mode, even though I'm sitting here parked with the engine off. So you heard none of that.
We heard half of that.
Okay, well, I have no idea what half you heard. Okay, should I just say it all again?
Sure, why not?
Okay, I don't know which half you heard. All right, I'll do super short. I'm Teresa Sigmund, and I run an online sewing company that teaches 3 aspects of sewing, primarily for women, how to make ballroom dance costumes, country dance, and skating costumes. There is a sewing business academy, which is geared toward lots of types of custom sewing, and it is everything that I did wrong over 25 years of a, quote, successful profit business and how to do it right. And then there's fabulous fitting techniques, which is how to work with stretch fabrics for both children and adult costumes that require lycra mesh, anything like that. So I'm like the stretch queen.
I love it. And Ronnie, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Ronnie from Design Pattern Sew on Instagram. I teach home sewists how to create patterns for knit shirts, sew them up, and be free from patterns, pattern hacking, be able to create garments, knit garments for themselves and friends and loved ones. I did not learn pattern drafting or sewing. I am mostly self-taught, library, internet, books, videos, and lots of trial and error. I absolutely love sewing. Most of my life I've been working with knits. I never knew it was supposed to be harder than woven, so praise the walking foot. Teresa, I'm all with you. And happy to be here. This is my first sewing summit and the second night that I'm joining you guys for the Q&A. Well, for me it's night. I'm in Haifa, Israel.
Yeah, we're very international today, actually. You guys all want to say where you're calling in from?
If you can't tell from the thick Welsh accent, I get more Welsh, the more excited I get. So I'm from Cardiff in the UK.
I'm from Mexico, but I also live in the UK.
I am American, but I am actually not too far from Cardiff at this moment. So I'm in southern England after spending the summer in UK working and living kind of as a local. So, yeah.
So excited. I have a good aura and pull around me. Everyone's just coming to Cardiff. Great.
It's a good place to be, apparently. It's still a place I would love to travel to and visit, so.
Although mine and Sandra's light might start dwindling, we're going to have some dodgy shadows going on, aren't we?
Yeah, it's my kids' bedtime as well, so if you hear some shouting going in, it's not so bad, alright? No one's dying.
That's part of the fun of wrangling kids to bed, right?
Yeah.
So one question that I asked earlier in the week was, what book would you recommend, either within your niche or just a book you've read recently that you really enjoyed or something? What is a good book recommendation?
Sorry to jump in, ladies, have just had this conversation with my members, and I'm so sorry to the spirit of Twyla Tharp. I might be butchering her name, but I believe the author is called Twyla Tharp. The Creative Habit. She's a choreographer and the author of the book, and at the end of each chapter she gives you an exercise, and one of these has been journaling prompts that me and my members have kind of started working through. I love a journaling prompt. I'm such a sucker for just getting my, unscrambling my scatterbrain. So there's 33 journaling prompts in one of these exercises, and it's about uncovering your creative DNA. And one of the things I really try and teach to people is that a creative process should be as unique as you are. The ladies on this call are, zone of genius in their own right. I can't crochet, I can't knit. I might claim I can, but I definitely can't. And it's just about figuring out a medium that works for you, what sings to you. Flat pattern cutting and draping are two different things. And whilst doing them both could be amazing, you might actually prefer one. And one of the questions in it is, do you prefer the process or the result? And I just found that quite a powerful question to ask people who make their own clothes. So The Creative Habit, definitely worth a read.
Awesome.
I wish I had any great recommendations like that. I've been stuck in the Thurs series, and I literally just finished them about, 2 weeks ago, and I missed them. And it's just such like trashy girly reading, but it's really entertaining. And since I have my hands busy a lot, I do audiobooks, and yeah, you can get through 20 hours of those in like no time. So go get them.
What was the name of the series again?
It's Akotar. It's Court of Thorns and Roses. That's the first book,
Okay.
and there's 5 of them. So it's just like the story just kind of keeps going, and it's quite trashy, but it's very good.
It's important to have those trashy reads sometimes, though. Give your mind a break.
You can be a whole person between Alexandra's recommendation and mine.
What about you, Teresa?
At this moment, I have mythology floating in my head since I just went to Tintagel yesterday and saw the castle ruins where King Arthur was supposedly conceived, and all sorts of history there. So I would have to say this big, thick book called The Mists of Avalon, and it is the woman's side of King Arthur, basically, that whole story from Uther Pendragon all the way down, and it's really, really thick, but I've read it 2 or 3 times over the last 10 or 12 years since somebody referred it to me. So that's what comes to mind.
That is a good book. I've read that. I've listened to that. It was a long time ago, but I really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah. I need to be making notes, guys.
And I know, Ronnie, I think you answered that question last time.
Yeah, although I also have an autobiography to recommend. I recently reread The Dressmaker of Kabul. It's an autobiography about this woman who was a young teenager when there was the first Taliban uprising in Kabul, and how she came from a family of women doctors and judges and lawyers, very educated women, and how everything changed over a course of just a few weeks, and suddenly like the women weren't allowed to do anything, and how they actually started a dressmaking school, and they taught women how to create clothing. And it's very, very interesting because if you look at Kabul, like in the 70s, they were at the height of fashion at the time, along with Milan and Paris, like, high-heeled shoes, fancy pantsuits, very elegant women's clothing, and just, the whole difference. And Israel's been going through some political changes lately, too. I'm not going to get into that, but just I recently reread that and kind of really enjoyed it. Very depressing, but very good.
I love a good depressing story, I'm not gonna lie. A good cry when especially when you're doing like an audiobook and you can like really feel it. I feel like, I don't know.
Yeah, and you're like, oh my God, she's my, like, a whole different lifetime, and just, not too far away, and hearing about the incredible strength of these women and how throughout everything they continue to sew and to create beautiful dresses. And
Well, we did have a question come in on Facebook. It says, Sandra, I'm so glad that somebody's taking crochet to more fashionable shapes. Not being a knitter, I felt left out as I was the only crochet.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you mention it. I feel like there's this weird like crochet and knitting are so similar in so many ways, but also very much at odds sometimes. And there's this kind of not fight, I don't want to say that, but like I feel like a lot of knitters feel like crochet is not good enough to be considered knitwear, you know. And I actually have a book I wrote. It's called Crochet Knitwear, Colorful Crochet Knitwear. I wrote it, I promise. And I know some people ask me like, why did you call it crochet knitwear if you know knitwear is like knitted, obviously. But in I'm from Mexico and we speak Spanish, and in Spanish to knit is the same word as to crochet. It's the hit, and it's just a tool that you change. And I just wanted to bring light to the fact that yeah, like we can make beautiful things also with crochet that are wearable. And I sew from time to time, but I'm not a sewist. I'm not a sewist at all. But I do love the idea of being able to create clothes that when you wear them, you don't feel like, oh, I obviously made this. You know what I mean? And it's just like if you have bought it somewhere else, no one would know that you bought it or you didn't. And I kind of wanted that to be crochet and knitwear, like you know, something that you can actually wear. And yeah, we're getting there. I'm not the only one, by the way. There's some amazing designers that are, you know, kind of working really hard to bring crochet to the forefront of design and knitwear in general. So it's very, very exciting time for crocheters.
Yeah, when I was talking to you, I love crochet, and I normally make the little tiny animals, though I have never actually tried to make a garment, but I'm just like, ooh, that's going to have to change now.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Everyone, when people think of crochet, they think of amigurumi, the little tiny animals, or they think of granny squares, you know, bulky kind of things that are super intense, colorful, which is lovely and beautiful, but that's not all that crochet is. So, yeah, it's good to bring life to it.
I imagine it's quite similar to sustainable fashion that had the bad rep for years of being like Hessian sacks and tie-dye, you know, even though tie-dye is beautiful. And it's just trying to break those barriers, isn't it? And say, no, hello, we're fashionable, thank you.
Yeah. And it's also a cultural thing. Like, I feel like knitting has been around for literally centuries. Like, people have been making clothes with this same technique forever. So everyone's used to it. And crochet was considered, you know, for tableware. And then in the 70s, you had, like, the little bikinis and stuff. But, like, no one actually took the time to make something, because you had knitting, why would you bother with something else, you know, because most people had both techniques, and now it's like, oh well, actually we can do it all.
Ooh, excuse me. Another one that I also have, or we had another message that came in just from Mary, and it says, I have also literally felt the same way about crochet versus knitting as well. Thank you, Sandra. Yeah, and another question I've always asked is, what helps you keep your creative mojo or gets you inspired to keep creating in a crazy business of always having to create? Yeah, go ahead, Teresa.
Unmute. There we go. For me, it's problem solving. I count the need to fix something as sort of my creative mode anymore, and it's problem solving is highly creative, and I think it's underrated because it doesn't always look pretty or colorful or, you know, something artsy. But I mean, if you think about it, we have all at some point in time, with whatever our genres are, and even in our lives or our relationships, we come up with really creative solutions to problems, whether it's pattern drafting or how to market crochet or how to fix a membership site problem or whatever. When we're faced with, I don't want to say adversity, but when we want to improve something, or when we want to make our point, and when we want to get our message out, it's like, how do we make this happen? How do we make this happen? And then the mind gets really creative on how to bring all of our wants and needs to life.
Awesome. Yeah, and we also have another Facebook that came in. It says, Ronnie, thank you for your insights. Being relatively new to sewing with knits, I had no idea that the maximum stretch needs to go around the body, but it makes so much sense.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was going to say that's also true with lycra mesh. There's always exceptions with our dance and skate costumes, but for the most part, it's the same. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Basically, one of the things that I learned is, and I like, I read an acronym for it, DOGS, Direction of Greatest Stretch. So you have two-way knits that stretch one-way and four-way knits that stretch in two directions. So you take the direction of greatest stretch and it goes around the body. Because if you think about it, our bodies, our garments will stretch around, but if you put the direction of greatest stretch going up and down, then what'll happen is over time the garment will sag. And I actually have a story about a gorgeous knit that I bought. It was cheap. I was beginning to sew, and the print was really, really nice, but and I wanted to make a simple skirt out of it. So the direction of greatest stretch was going up and down. And while it had enough stretch to go around my hips and to fit, and I really enjoyed wearing it, after several wears, just the weight of the fabric kind of pulled it down all the time. So the hemline started to look really wonky because the direction of greatest stretch was going up and down. And after that, I made that mistake one more time, but after that, I never made that mistake again. So yeah, I bought another fabric where the great border print was going in the wrong direction. I managed to work with it. I made a garment that wasn't great. I wore it a few times. I really enjoyed it, but lesson was totally learned until the next time I make that mistake.
Yeah, this person, I don't know if it's the same person, but she says, they say, I made some stretch rib trousers, and after a few wears and washes, the crotches sagging to the floor. It was a normal pattern with no negative ease.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
It's worth noting, I was told by a mentor many years ago to always, even if it's shop bought, knitwear jumpers, store them folded. Anything on a hanger at the time, it's gone, it's out of there. So all my knitwear, I've got shelves of it stacked.
Mm-hmm.
Quite nice to see though, you can just grab in and reach it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of my suggestions, because sometimes you have a pattern. Let's say you bought a striped fabric and you don't want the striped fabric going around the body. You intentionally cut it with the most stretch going north and south, up and down, because that's the way you want the vertical stripe. You want vertical stripes, not horizontal stripes. So you can definitely offset that by doing what Alexandra said and store it flat. And with dance and skate costumes or other types of costumes where you sweat in it a lot, it's a good idea to put it inside a cotton pillowcase or a cotton sheet, and then store it flat under the bed or in an empty drawer, and that way the moisture doesn't also settle in the dress. I also tell my folks, whenever they're making ball gowns, it's cut on the bias, right? So it does that inherent look. So I'll say let the skirt hang out for 3 or 4 or 5 days before you trim and hem, and that way the bias has already hung out, so that you can do that nice trim and hem, and it will keep an even hem, assuming that you want an even hem, for much longer. Yeah. And logically, the same would apply if you cut the stretch going up and down on a knit or a lycra or a stretch velvet.
Do you have any other fun tips or tricks? We've had a few people talking about knits this week and lycra and that stuff. Do you have any other tips and tricks you want to share?
I know some people like, I read a conversation somewhere, I don't remember where it was in this group, but it was like, do you wash first or do you not wash the fabric first? And for me, I did not wash the fabric first because people were going to sweat in it anyway. I would say usually if you have sensitive skin, wash the sizing out. Or of course, if I was going to custom dye something, I would wash it, gentle detergent, dry it with no dryer sheets, and then go from there. But the stretch fabrics these days are really quite forgiving. So my theory on wash is do what you want depending on your skin sensitivity. It's easier if you don't wash, but
Then it just depends on if it shrinks.
Across the nation there, Teresa. It's such a hot topic. I've never washed my fabric. There, I've said it.
I'm not a
Never done
sewer.
it.
And I thought that was the rule. Like you had to wash them, and I hate it because then you have this huge piece of fabric coming out, and you're like, "What am I supposed to do this?" And it's all wrinkly and stuff. I thought I had to do it.
Some
So
fabrics do shrink, some do, but I mean, you didn't hear it from me, guys, but I can't claim to say do as I say, not as I do. Never wash fabric.
I never pre-washed fabrics till I had little kids, and then when I started sewing for them, then I would pre-wash the fabrics. But now that they're older, back to, I get back from the store and you just want to cut into that stuff.
Yeah, it depends a lot on if it's going to shrink or not. And there's been things that I definitely did not pre-wash and then washed it and it shrunk. But then it's just a little bit shorter.
And you can always pre-wash a sample or a swatch rather than the whole thing.
Yeah.
You can test it, but we have energy for that.
that's the nice thing about working with stretch fabrics is that they don't generally shrink.
Although this one,
Sometimes they do, but for the most part, you're pretty good to go.
yeah. And if they do shrink, they can stretch out enough normally. We did get another comment on Facebook from Michelle. I'm really wanting to get good with knits. I've mostly sewn woven, and I found knits to be quite a bit different. Do either of you two want to say anything?
Wow, if you're listening and you could write what is the main difference that you've encountered, that would be interesting to hear. I already said earlier this week, walking foot, worth its weight in gold. Get it? It's probably the best investment you could do. You really don't need a fancy machine, but a walking foot is definitely worth it. If your pins are perpendicular to the hem, just sew over them. That'll help in the meantime till you get a walking foot. And don't stretch your fabric. Don't hold too tightly. Loosen your presser foot tension so it's not pressing on the fabric so much. And let the feed dogs feed the fabric. You don't need to pull. And use a stretch stitch, either a zigzag or a lightning stitch, or use a thread that has a stretch element to it.
Yeah, she says
And
that.
a stretch needle.
Yeah, she says that it's the stitches popping even when she's using a zigzag stitch.
So,
Oh, thread's probably rotten.
yeah, thread could actually go bad. You could test your thread really simply. If it's a cotton or even synthetic threads, if they're sitting in the drawer for too many years, moisture, heat, they don't do good to threads. Pull it. If it pops easily, just take the whole spool, throw it away. Don't waste your time on it.
Yep.
Get a new spool. All of grandma's spools, those loving women who, I was cleaning out my old aunt's house and I found all these wonderful spools. They're great. Put them in the jar. They're a nice decoration. Don't use them.
Right.
Yeah, that's so true. There's times where I'm sewing and I'm like, oh, this just needs to go in the trash.
I'd also add with knits, like there's a lot to be said with any sewing in preparation step. So basting can really help you. Supporting the weight of the fabric can help avoid stretching it. So there's small little hacks you can do as well to kind of see the results.
Yeah. We have Mary. She loves to also make sure that her bobbins are fresh. That was one of her tips. And then we have a Facebook user that says, I have recently used the Gutermann Mid-Flex, which has some stretch in it, and it's really good. I'm not sure I've heard of that one, that Gutermann had like a flex in it. I'll have to.
I tried by Gutermann and by Alexoflex, and they're both very nice.
Yeah.
They've got quite some stretch to it, yeah.
Awesome. That's good to know. I've never. We'll have to check those out. Michelle answered, I do have thread. Have to be by an older woman that has passed away. Never thought of that. I think we all have probably been gifted rotten thread at some point in our careers. I know I have.
I actually read an article once. There's 4 color threads that will match almost any color fabric. It's an off-white, a gray, a type of a blue, and a type of a pink, and like they blend in really well with most fabric colors. I'll send the link. I'll put the link on the Facebook page after this.
Yeah.
But getting flexible colors means you don't need as many spools of thread.
Or be willing to have the bold top stitching and contrasting, not matching threads.
One of the things I used to do with my travel kit when I was going to a dance competition, I would carry 6 or 8 color threads with me. One was flesh colored because there's a lot of flesh colored elastic straps and things like that to hold the dresses up. But I also carried several marking pens with me. So in case I needed to do a thread loop on a red dress and I did not happen to have red thread with me because it wouldn't fit, then I could just do it in white and then go on with the marking pen over it and suddenly it's got red thread. And those are much smaller to carry around than, a spool of thread that might be that big around. So, and they're usually permanent also. And they can work in a pinch, like if your silver hook shows on a black or a dark gray, just come in with a black marking pen, and then it could, help camouflage it, and so it wouldn't be so shiny under the lights. I just see Sylvie C. Is that one of my sewing school students in Canada? Just saw that name show up in the chat. Yes, awesome. Hello. Oh, that's funny. And Melody might be also. That would. I'd messaged in the chat that I didn't see a reply yet.
Yeah. Let's see here. She just says cool. Yeah. Does anyone else have some questions for each other, or we could, I don't know if Alexandra, if you want to talk about some of the principles of pulling out your dream wardrobe and like selecting certain pieces, or how you kind of go about doing that.
So I take both an analytical and creative approach. I always joke that I'm like Monica out of Friends with like color-coded folders and love a spreadsheet and all of that. So I'm not just some kind of free-spirited creative. I love the organization of it as well. And I've touched upon journaling. And the first step in my process with my members is actually, like we've just touched upon, we all want to rush and we want to cut out final fabric and we want to sew it up. But what ends up happening, I don't know if anyone else has had this experience, is you're sewing something at the machine, you've seen a pattern on Instagram, you pick a fabric you're so in love with, and you go through a weekend, you put the blinds down, you close yourself out to the outside world, and you sew this garment, and you put it on, and you're like, oh, that just doesn't look as nice on me as I thought it would. Like, it's the worst feeling, and it happens to all of us all the time. So what we try and do is minimize that by understanding your proportions. And for those that have watched the masterclass today on building your dream wardrobe, there are 3 secret ABCs to styling, which is all about restoring balance and proportion in your body. So little Miss Scoliosis over here is like, I'm off over here, just like that. And so it's about restoring that balance and dressing through color, silhouette, to kind of, I have very broad shoulders, so any inverted triangle people out there, hey sisters, it's about restoring the broadness over here with a wide leg trouser down here. And so once you start to analyze that and just totally appreciate and accept your body, because as women, as men, as other in this world of social media, we're always faced with, why don't I look like that? And this person looks amazing, and why can't I sew like that? I mean, Teresa's just touched upon some really awesome little secrets there, and you might have perfectionism getting in the way, when in reality we do little tricks like that all the time to finish off a garment. Like, it's just the nature of the chaotic creative process. And once you start to accept that my broad shoulders, and sorry to say this, but itty bitty titty committee isn't going anywhere. I'm not going to suddenly wake up with double D's and have a voluptuous curvy figure. So once I kind of appreciate and understand that about myself, I can start dressing for it. And another thing that goes into that when I touch upon colour is seasonal colour analysis. And this is an age-old trick that has been used in styling for years. And it's essentially trying to match the undertones of your skin and your complexion and your hair and your eyes and really match that with the colours that you choose to wear. Big disclaimer, my golden rule is wear what the bloody hell you want, okay? So this isn't like, here's the rule book, this is how you look good. If you want to wear a bin bag with some gold embellishments and just think, wow, I look amazing, yeah, of course you look amazing. Anyone's going to look good with a big smile on their face, feeling confident. But if you did want to deep dive into it and avoid or minimize that chance of sewing something at the machine and putting it on and being like, why doesn't this look as good on me? Because even if someone on Instagram who displays the same kind of bust, waist, hip measurements might be proportionately different, they might be long torso and short torso. And so it's really understanding your body. And once you really accept that, then you can take back the power and start to create things that you like. So that is drawing the eye to places that you want to accentuate. I mean, if I love my broad shoulders, there's nothing stopping me from accentuating them further. But it's just restoring balance. So it's attract, balance, and colour. They are the ABCs of styling. And once you unlock that, you can start to really play around with it. I am a very light toned person. And for years, and I'm talking especially when I was in the industry, I think it was a reflection of how depressed we all were, working long hours. I just wore black. And I wondered why it dragged me down. I wondered why my bags looked a little bit harsher. And so once I realised that I need to accept the fact that I'm very light skin toned and fair, and started dressing light colours, and also with age, our style changes, our posture changes, ain't that the truth? Our figures change, ain't that the truth? And once you kind of understand that and accept the journey that your body is going on, you can start to analyse what's in your wardrobe. There is so much power to analysing why you don't reach for something as much as why you do reach for something. And then you can start to really journal on it. You can do what I like to call a wardrobe inventory. So you can say, I'm a sucker for journey gear. In fact, I think half my wardrobe is my boyfriend's wardrobe. I call myself a fashion designer. And my personal wardrobe isn't actually that extensive. My members say all my creativity goes on my clients, and I'm running with that narrative. And once you can start to analyse that, well, there's no point in me sewing up a mini dress made out of really high-end leather because I'm not going to wear it. And I need to just, although I love it and I can appreciate a beautiful garment, it's about being at peace with you and your authentic style and then sewing for that. Because there's so many gorgeous dresses out there I would absolutely love to sew. Am I going to wear them? Probably not. And once you're at peace with that, and once you start to understand that, you can tap into your true authentic style. And my partner, isn't this annoying of partners? Why do they do this to us? Has told me that I need to stop saying build your dream wardrobe because it sounds like you've got wood and nails. So I need to start saying create your dream clothing. So I'm trying to rephrase my vocabulary. But then it's about that. It's about sewing pieces at the machine and having confidence that when you then try them on, you don't feel deflated. You pick something that suits your unique proportions, suits your personality, and suits the kind of colouring and undertones that's as unique as you are.
I think all of those are crucial. And if anybody listening to this replay or on live has done any of my dress design challenges, which are often free, or in the sewing school, you'll know that I talk about two things. One is your color, because it can make a huge difference in how you look, how youthful or vibrant or well-rested you look. And body analysis, which is knowing where you're crooked, because we're all crooked somewhere. It could be one breast larger than the other. It could be one hip curves more than the other hip. It could be anything. I have, our nostrils are different, our ears are different. And just like Alexander said, when you learn to dress to accentuate the areas, the body parts that you like and that you feel confident showing, and minimize or balance the areas that you don't like or that are really asymmetrical with scoliosis, it can make a world of difference. And I think just based on reading my participants' comments, it is when you know why store-bought clothes don't fit you is empowering. because otherwise it's so easy for us as humans, but especially as women, to say, oh, there's something wrong with us because these clothes don't fit us. They don't fit our proportions. They don't fit our asymmetries. Instead of just saying, the clothes are crap and it's not me that there's something wrong with. I just have to adjust the clothes to truly suit me or to make them from scratch. And when you do your body analysis and you are aware of where your curves are and where you want them and where you don't want them, it can make a really big difference. Sometimes even if your face is asymmetrical, if you wear asymmetrical hair, it can balance your face and make it look perfectly symmetrical and nobody would ever know. So go ahead.
I do love that. I love the idea of like getting to know yourself, and I feel like from a knitter and a crocheter's perspective, like making a garment takes so much time. Like literally, 30, 60 hours easy on making a jumper, and it's such a process craft. So it's a lot about it, the finished project, but it's also about the time that goes into it and the movies that you watched and the road trips that you took it on. And, it's so much about the process that we sometimes forget about the finished object, and we forget about how we're going to wear that and how we're going to style it. And I do try, like Alexandra and you, Thurs, that were saying, like thinking about how you're going to wear that. How does that suit your body? How you think about the colors, and that also goes into the knitting and the crocheting of something, like making those choices ahead of time so that at the end you have something that you actually want to wear. Like I've seen some really, really fun, incredibly intense patterns that, have like bubbles and stuff everywhere, and it looks like so much fun to make. But I know that I will never wear that. And it's like one of those things, like, do I want to put the time and the money and the effort into creating something that, yes, I'm going to have so much fun doing, but then what purpose is it going to serve afterwards? So it's like finding that balance between having the fun and then having something that is utilitarian at the same time.
And I want to just add to that, Sandra, because there's some really amazing things you've just said there. But it's also understanding that creativity is a process. So like mistakes are going to happen. It doesn't matter if you go through all the analytics, you might still make something that you don't feel great in. It is the nature of what we do. And also there is nothing stopping you from picking something that maybe isn't going to look good on you, but the technicality is there and you want to use it as a learning experience. And so it's about picking your creative process and making that as tailored to you as you need it to be for whatever chapter you're in on your journey. So it's not about perfectionism. I think as creatives, we really all struggle with this. It's just about understanding that the seam ripper is written for life. I'm sorry. It's not going anywhere, okay?
Yeah, we call it frogging in crochet because you rip. And it's like, you just redo until you get it. And the whole process is a learning opportunity, isn't it? And it's like, it is enriching. And like I was saying, like I am a bit of a sewist, but not really. And everything I've made has like a mistake, like literally everything.
but then it's if people see it. So I'm like, well, no, that's not perfect. But
I mean, this is amazing wearing those things. It's like, I know that strap is about to fall off, but I do not care because I made it, and it's just,
I also encourage people to keep something I like to call a fashion file. And it was something I was started on in university in my formal studies, but was initially meant to be quite technical. And so you learn methods and you make a note of it and you document your process, and obviously that's meant to reiterate in your brain. But the power I found in a fashion file, and my members love keeping one, and like I sell fashion file packs, but you certainly don't need to buy one to start one, is you document your process. And when I teach design, I am a little bit of a dictator, so I'm like, no, you bloody rub that out. Don't rub out your sketch, keep it. It doesn't matter if you hate it, because in 6 months' time, you're going to look back and see how far you've come. The amount of people I speak to who have been sewing for 2 to 5 years, and they're like, I'm a beginner. And I'm like, I can guarantee you are not a beginner. Like, build the confidence up. If you can document the process, then you're actually going to, because like I just say, I've been doing this for over a decade now. I don't think anything I produce is perfect, but many people will think it's shop bought. So understanding how that looks to where you come from is a really powerful exercise as well.
Yeah.
Can I tie all this back into Melody's question in the chat? And is that what you were going to say, Christina?
Yeah, I think also Sandra has to take off really fast. Somebody was just asking on YouTube what you were working on. So if you could just...
It's actually a secret project, and I'm not even supposed to be showing it. I'm working in conjunction with a yarn company, Botanical Yarns from here from the UK. And this is their advent calendar yarn, and I'm the designer for the crochet pattern, so people can buy the advent calendar and they get 24 different tiny skeins of yarn or 5 large skeins of yarn, and I'm going to be writing the pattern so that they can make something with all of that yarn. And yeah, this is all Christmas stuff, which is weird that I'm working on it in September. That this is the life of a designer, isn't it? You're always like way ahead of time. But yeah I can't show you more than this tiny little corner.
That's okay. She
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm really sorry I have to cut short. I hear lots of screaming, and it's almost 7, so someone's gonna be very angry at me.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Nice. Yeah, and then Teresa, if you want to answer the question that came in from Melody, I can read it out. It says, let's say I'm trying a new technique, which I never used before, but my client asks for it. Would you do it, or will you do it? If you do, when will you give it up if you find you can't make it?
That's a really great question, which does tie in with what Alexandra and Sandra was talking about learning new things. And it's there, you will always have your seam ripper in your life. However, when it comes to charging a client, what's the cutoff point? And that's a tough call, Melody. If you're, let's say you're working in a genre where you're really confident, then you know what you can do quickly or efficiently, and you know where you might be willing to spend more time without getting paid just to learn a new skill. Because sometimes we just like to push ourselves, and we may or may not make money on this, let's say if it's a 20-hour project, we're going to throw 4 hours into for free because we want to learn to do this technique. And if that is your choice, then make sure you tell your client that, because you want them to know this is your price quote, not this is your price quote, and that you are willing to do this XYZ step that you're not comfortable with, but it's something that you would like to learn. And if it does not work within a certain amount of time, then the client can have a choice. You can either skip that particular design element or that technique or whatever your client wants, Melody, or they can pay more for you to keep plowing through it. But you have the power, and the client has the power when you have clarity at the beginning, so that you can say, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm willing to try, this is how long I am willing to try at my expense, and then you can let me know, do you want to pay more? Or do you want to change the design and skip this specific thing that you're asking for? And none of us could tell you what your time cutoff is. You have to sort of decide that in advance, just like we would all have to decide that for our own projects. And if it's something that you did a long time ago and you really don't want to do it, it is perfectly fine for you to decline. Or if you have a very full work schedule and you have no time to take on some extra project that it could end up being double your estimated allowance, feel free to say no. We can try this at a different point in time when I'm not so busy, when it's not my prime season.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps. And if anybody else has feedback on that from just a client perspective, I'm sure Melody would love that.
Yeah, so I don't do sewing work with my clients. I actually help them establish fashion businesses. So it's a much more business-to-business consultancy type thing. However, I will say in any business that has clients, boundaries, communication are very, very important. I do, if it's something that I've not done before, I think in my mind anyway, again, this is very subjective and personal, In my mind, there's a 10% rule, and if that's 10% beyond my comfort zone, I believe I'm capable of it. If I'm shooting for something that's 70% or 80%, to me, that I'm not skilled at that. So I need to do a lot more upskilling, and I need to work on myself before I would feel comfortable to actually charge someone a rate. But it's communication, it's boundaries, and one thing that really has stuck with me when I've worked with many business mentors over the years is it's your business. So your business needs to work for you. And I think when we work with clients, we can often bend over backwards and we can almost let those boundaries go. But it's your business. You've started a business because you want a lifestyle, you want autonomy. Whatever the reason is, you need to make sure that your business is working for you, and your clients therefore need to respect those boundaries.
And they can only respect it if they know what your boundaries are. You have to know what your boundaries are. Go ahead, Ronnie. Sorry.
I've actually never sewn professionally. I mean, I've done a few small projects for money, but some of the bigger projects I did for other people were for some of my friends. I sewed their wedding dresses, and it's strange because my best friend, I actually didn't offer to do her dress. I'm so glad she didn't ask. It never came. I took her to the bridal shops. I went with her. She was a bridezilla. I would have never, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, she's my best friend, all the money in the world. I do not want her, nothing is worth that. And so for me, one of the things that, when people saw the dresses I made for friends, they were like, why don't you sew wedding dresses? And I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with people who have wants, and when they feel that they're paying, then they deserve, they don't understand. It's like, oh, that's just, sorry, Teresa, I'm going to go out on you, but, what's a leotard? It's barely a meter of fabric. Lycra, that's 40,
Right. That's when client education comes into it. They have to know. They have to know the value of what you do, what each of us do in order to appreciate it. Yeah.
But I've had people say to me, I'll buy you the fabric. It's like, yeah. And
I don't wave a magic wand.
Exactly. What about the time, the love, all the learning that I've taken, years of mistakes that are worth something. So even, I'm sure as a business owner, you can choose your clients,
Yeah.
And I think
and one thing I learned, there's a great thing called saying no with a number. And I have some friends who do this, and if they don't want a project, they'll say no, and they'll just they won't say no, but they'll just multiply by 10, and then it's like, okay, if you're paying me 10 times what I would normally take, then it'll become
And I think another thing in terms of just even an hourly rate, like you've just touched upon there, it takes you years. So now if you're making a leotard in so much time, and they're like, well, that's not a lot. And it's like, well, I'm actually skilled enough for it to take that much time. So you need to account for that as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
We did have another. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, we just had another just kind of comment on Facebook that is one of the speakers during the week said, if we don't know RTW doesn't fit us, why do we expect patterns to fit us? So true. In my head, I have a style and fabric that I'd like to wear, but I can never find exactly the right pattern or fabric. I wish I could design both the garment and the fabric. So I know in this week, there's lots of people that can help you learn how to pattern make it, as well as whether it's woven or stretch.
I think that said that.
It's what?
And I that's my sentence,
Oh.
He doesn't, so.
Yeah. But then there's also
reach out to me, Design Pattern Sew on Instagram. I'll be happy to help you. It's knit fabric.
Yeah.
Woven, not my forte.
But then there's also the amazing places like Spoonflower and everything that you can actually design your own fabric and get it printed off. So.
Well, I think it's important to differentiate there actually between textile design and print design, because textile design is the fibers and the wovens, and you can actually create your own textile. Whereas print design, which is Spoonflower, would be your repeat patterns and digital print on top. So even so many bloody nuances in fashion, isn't there? What? So many terminologies. But I think it'd be important to differentiate.
Yeah. I know we're probably wrapping up soon, but I know Teresa probably has to take off real fast. If you want to say a quick goodbye and then
Goodbye. Thank you
okay.
all for being here. Thank you for, this has been like a really fun conversation. I missed the one on Thursday because I didn't, anyway, I missed the one on Thursday. And yeah, this is really fun. Tomorrow's call is at like 3 a.m. my time. So I'm not going to be on it, but this has been a blast. Thank you all. I hope everybody has had a fabulous time in the VIP group, watching all the extra videos and these Q&As and knowing that you can go back and rewatch it. And yeah, if you have friends who have not done it, tell them to get on the ball here before it's too late, because there is a lot of valuable information from everyone's courses and everyone's extra videos.
Yep.
So that's
awesome.
It. All right, awesome. Thank you for having me on, Christina.
Yeah, we'll see you. Yeah, like I said,
bye.
We're probably going to be wrapping up here. Yeah, the Facebook user says, yeah, they thought it was you, Ronnie. So it looks like they'll connect with you as well. But do either of you want to say anything else or bring anything else up before we sign off?
I think the same thing applies of what we rounded our interview off before. Like, fashion is meant to be fun at the end of the day. I've touched upon riding horses, and my instructor says to me when I'm like welling up in the saddle and fighting for my life, it's like, smile, Alex. You do this because it's fun. And I think we can get so frustrated with sewing, and you know, like we've said, things might not turn out how they want. You might feel like you've plateaued in your skill set. You might feel you don't know where to start. It's meant to be fun. They're clothes at the end of the day. Wear what you want, design what you want, create what you want, and just have fun with it.
I love that.
I'd like to add, I feel that a lot of people get stuck in a loop of doom scrolling. There is so much information on social media, and there's so many ways to save it, to like it, to comment, to say, I'll get to this. But the only way to improve in sewing is to actually start. So put down the computer, put down your phones, and, pick whatever project you want. I think t-shirts are wonderful first projects because, you could customize it and make it yours, and then you could wear it, and nobody will ever say that looks wonky. The sewing community is so amazing, and if you tell people I made this, they'll be like, wow, and I'm sure there maybe are some snooty sewists there that'll be like, well, you didn't do perfect pattern matching, and those stripes aren't perfectly aligned, and the top stitching could be slightly better, but screw that. You made something, and you should be absolutely so proud of it. And if you're ever, uncomfortable wearing something, I remember when I made my first swimsuit, my mother was like, "You're seriously going to count on that to hold everything up and everything?" And I wore it in the shower a few times. I jumped around on a trampoline. I made sure it worked. And then I went to the pool, and I felt awesome. Wear it around the house, wear it with people you feel comfortable with, and get some feedback from them, and then wear it out in the world, and the most important thing is a smile.
Yeah, I love that too. That's near and dear to my heart for sure. So we have somebody just joining us late. I'm sorry I'm catching the end of this, but I absolutely needed to hear that. So perfect timing. Well, thank you for joining us on the Thursday Live Q&A. I hope you guys are enjoying the videos. Make sure to go in and grab everybody's free gifts so that you can keep the information flowing and get some amazing tips and tricks from everybody. And I look forward to seeing everybody in other videos and on the Facebook group. Have a wonderful day.